Hello, I'm David DeCosmo. Welcome to ECTV Live. I'm joined today by Craig Lukács from an organization called Lackawanna Sanctuary. And I guess we better tell you what that is. So
Sure.
We've gone over it before, but for those that haven't seen it.
Yeah, well, Lackawanna Sanctuary is really a nature preserve, an environmental education center, and a research facility on the shore of Lake Wallenpaupack, just east of Scranton, about 35 minutes away, off of Interstate 84. We're really well known for our research in the environment if you're on a collegiate side, but ultimately where people come to us, visit us the most is to hike our trails. We have over 8 miles of trails, pristine lake. That's the most southern glacial lake in the hemisphere.
Right, so you're not actually connected to Lake Wallenpaupack, which was a man-made lake.
Right. Actually, 1 mile of our shoreline sits on the lake.
Okay, but water to water,
No.
separate bodies of water.
Separate watersheds.
As a matter of fact, very separate bodies of water.
Totally different. Lake Wallenpaupack's, is very used for recreation. Ours has nothing on it, no boats, and it's primarily used for research. So difference in water quality and everything like that.
Sure, which is why it is a research facility. And I want to get into a lot of the ways the sanctuary is used and available to the public. But one specific thing that comes up every year, and one of the reasons we bring him in, is a thing that's called a Lake to Lake Run.
Right.
Literally, the two lakes are there, and a few years back they said, well, okay, people are into the jogging and such now and such, so you came up with this. Right.
This is our 4th year having it, and it started off as an 8K run with a walk for those who are not, so energized to run 5 miles, right? Because really an 8K is 5 miles. And then last year we added a dog component to the walk to say, we love dogs visiting us too, so we added that. This year we decided we're going to do an 8K and a 5K, so really 5 miles and 3.1 miles, and now the dog walk, dogs with their human friends, So we've added that, and it's our 4th year doing it, and it literally is between our two lakes, between Lake Lackawanna and Lake Wallenpaupack.
Now, is that a level trail?
No.
No.
It's for the runners, it's a very hard, I don't say it's very hard, it's a challenging course. It is a trail run, so it is on trails, it is not on the road, so that's one component why we added it, to get people to come visit us. The walk, it's not challenging for the walk, but it's like if anyone came out hiking, to our trails. But for those who are runners, it's great because it's the autumn, the trees are changing.
Oh, yes.
It's a beautiful time of year to come out.
Sure, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous area there. Yeah. I just think it's fantastic that you have specifically added and advertised the dog walk part.
Yeah. It's, one of the challenges that we have at Lackawanna for a lot of people who are listening and watching us today, they, one, don't know where we're at or have heard of us and never visited. And then we get the calls of, can we bring our dog with us? Because a lot of private sanctuaries don't allow outside animals.
Yes.
And so of course we do. Our thing is we want people to visit us. We want people to take their dogs out. We're so dog friendly. We have all everything that you can need for your dog there. And sometimes we even sell some dog merchandise too. Lackawanna. We have Lackawanna merchandise for the dogs, like little doggy bowls that they can carry with them for water. So that's the neat component because and last year after we advertised at the very last minute, literally the weeks before the race, people were like, this is so neat. And so they basically started signing up and bringing their dogs with them.
We ought to perhaps tell everybody when it is this year.
That's true, yeah. It's always the same Sunday of October. It's always the 3rd Sunday of October, which this year is October 15th.
And what is the registration?
The cost or the deadline? Basically, we're taking it right up to that day. Right now, if you now we're in that pre-phase where it's a little bit cheaper than it is. The run, if you were getting close to the race, the run costs $30 for the 8K. The 5K is $25, and then $20 for the walk. So, and what people get for the race, which is nice because people like to know what they're going to get something.
Sure.
Right. We're giving out T-shirts, of course. A lot of people, some likes the T-shirts, sometimes they don't. We're also giving socks out this year. Which are pretty neat with our logo on them. And then, of course, our dog friends, they get a little bandana to wear around their neck. So.
Now, how are those proceeds put to good use?
Right. So the other side of what we do is environmental education. So For really our programs for K to 12, even pre-K to 12, we basically take that money and subsidize field trips to our facility and when our educators go out to the school districts. So basically, you know, this day and age where education is so critical, but there's not a lot of funding for it, we can bring that hands-on learning to a classroom. And that's so critical these days where, you know, we're learning about the standards and teaching for tests, but sometimes you fail that if you don't do hands-on, kids don't remember as much. So our goal is to get kids out in the environment because a lot of kids, like think about it in Scranton, I mean, when was the last time maybe somebody was out in the middle of the forest, you know?
Yeah,
it's not very close by. So our goal is to...
Yeah, you can read about it in a textbook, and that's important.
It is.
To be able to study that.
Right.
But I've always said that hands-on approach, it leaves more of a lasting impression on the youngsters.
Right, and so that's where the funding goes to. It kind of subsidizes those programs for school districts or schools that can't really afford the full cost, because when you're thinking about getting them out into nature, they have to rent buses or take buses and then pay for the program. So, you know, like anything, we're a nonprofit, but we're a business too, so we have our overhead costs. And so if we can subsidize that and say that's going to go toward a really good cause. So most of all the fundraising we do goes to our K to 12 programs and some of our summer programs too. Like we run residential camps for students, high school students. We run summer camps for kids, and so our goal is never to turn anyone away based on, you know, if somebody a parent wants to send their child to camp, we're not going to turn them away because they can't afford it.
Right.
So in a sense, it does go to that cause of scholarshiping students in classrooms to really get that hands-on experience.
Now, is it just me, or is it true? I have the distinct impression that we've really come a long way with regard to offerings of and interest in environmental education.
Oh yeah, it's well, part of the standards across the nation and then the state, you know, have that component for this environmental ed, you know, so learning about water quality and watersheds and all that kind of stuff. So we've noticed that in our work with teachers and school districts, that there's that need to get that STEM, well now they're really saying STEAM, which is science, technology, engineering, art, and math. And so if you can combine all these kind of multifaceted components into one lesson, that's really what teachers want these days. I mean, that's what we're finding. And kids are engaged because they're out doing stuff. And so environmental ed is important because, you know, with all the things that are happening today around, even in this area, you know, we need to really respect the resources that we have, and teaching the young about it. You know, I don't know, when we were younger, we were outside playing all day, right?
Oh, sure, absolutely.
And, you know, and we find a lot of kids don't even know how to engage with nature. It's a lot of technology, screen time. And so if we can give them that little bit of away from screen time.
Excuse me. Yeah. Well, the technology of today is great. But unfortunately, and it seems to be the case, especially with young people, they overuse it and underuse our natural environment that is can be so attractive. Speaking of which, we're talking about the lake-to-lake run and walk and dog walk. October again, the 15th. But the facility is open all year long. So how would a general group of people, non-school related, how might they make use of a facility like yours?
Right. So we're 550 acres. So anyone can find us by just coming and hiking our facility. The first part of our visitor center, and we have a main kiosk that they can grab a trail map, information about our property, and there's QR codes on the trails. So if for those who, as we were talking about, being, you know, technologically savvy, with their smartphones, they can scan these QR codes, have really a guided hike without having one of our educators.
Now, so they've got one of those phones, and you have one of these. What are they called? The
QR codes. They're the little black and white codes. Then you scan your phone with one of the apps, and then it takes you to a specific related web page. And so from that web page, you can, like for example, near one of our ponds, we have beavers. So one of the QR codes you scan, it takes you about beavers. It talks about how they live, what their residents look like, and kind of how because you'll see some trees that are cut along the way that are beaver chews. And so we do that so that people can really connect and learn a little bit. So not only are you going out to enjoy nature, but we also want people to take away a little something.
Sure, learn about it as well.
Yeah. So that's one way that people can engage. Obviously, we run public programs throughout the year. We always run a public hike, open to the public, free of charge every month. So our next one What are we in October? So really it's a Veterans Day hike is the next one. Then there's one in November. We still do them in cold weather. Obviously it's weather contingent. So we can always invite the public. We have public programs that sometimes people have to pay for. Like we had a big mushroom hike recently where we teach the public about edible mushrooms versus,
oh, there's a lot of people would like to learn about that, I'm sure.
So we run public programs all year round for the general public besides our school programs. So that's one way we engage the public. But the best way, if somebody has never been there, is just to take a little ride, on a Sunday afternoon, a Saturday, and just enjoy the sanctuary. I mean, it's easy to get to. It's right off of Interstate 84. It's about 3 miles off of Exit 20, which is the Greentown exit. It's GPS gets you there, so it's not hard to find.
Right.
Yeah.
And the lake there, as I recall, and I think you mentioned earlier, is actually formed by glacier.
It is. It's a glacial lake. There's no spring fed to it or streams or anything. It's just basically from the watershed. So whatever flows in the watershed is what keeps the lake filled. And like I said before, it's considered the most southern glacial lake, pristine glacial lake, meaning that it has been protected over years of not having any outside pollution or residue, motorboats, that kind of stuff in it. And so why it's important for us and why we have our claim to fame is that our lake is compared with lakes across the world about how the environment is changing. Mm-hmm. So right. How the surface temperatures of the lake may be rising. And we're not doing anything to the lake, so that's all atmospheric.
I see.
And so that's what it's used for, is to say, okay, if our lake is changing, and how is it changing with all the lakes around the world? So something must be happening. Is something warming up? Or the last couple of years, the ice patterns in our lake have been very sporadic. Normally in the winter, ice is always on the lake.
Yes.
Last year it was on and off. And that just really shows that there's something going on. The seasons are kind of off a little bit, and so we monitor that, and we've been monitoring that since the 60s.
So you've got extensive records then yes. on these manifestations, climatological manifestations, or whatever, that how they relate to that lake and this area.
Right. So it's really long-term data for us, and that's why it's important, because we're able to say, okay, this is what we've noticed. We've noticed things like when a hurricane comes through. I guess years ago, some of the larger hurricanes that affected our area, we can see the differences in our lake of what's happening. The water mixes and the temperatures change drastically, and that, right. of course, affects everything in the lake, the fish, the small zooplankton, the phytoplankton, those really small organisms in the lake, and that all fits into the whole structure of how the lake is healthy.
Right.
So one of our things that we do for our work to help the public too is we have a program called Pleon, which is basically a lake monitoring system, and we work with lake communities and basically assess the health of their lake and what can they do to keep their lake healthy. For swimming, for fishing, what you should not put in your lake. And so we monitor and take water samples of their lake as well. So we do our own lake, but then we say, how can we help all our friends around us?
Sure. So do you actually have a laboratory on site?
We do. We don't do the actual water testing on site. Our laboratory is a research laboratory, so we're doing collegiate research. PhDs are coming in to actually study their long-term, added to the long-term research that we're doing. So they're studying their own specific project. We work with some labs in the area that do the water quality samples for us, but it's a way to teach people about lakes. I mean, it's selfish for us just to be with our own lake and not teach other people about theirs.
And when we think of lakes, Wallenpaupack is a prime example, although it was a man-made lake, as opposed to something like Harvey's Lake, for instance, in Luzerne County. But the fact of the matter is, people go to enjoy a lake, and of course they build a house. Yeah. And the house has ramifications on the lake. The boats that they use on the water have ramifications on the lake. So it's great to enjoy, but by the same token, that enjoyment can also cause damage.
Right, and that's kind of why we want to teach. It's really called citizen science. It's really teaching people about the science of how these things work, but taking responsibility for it. So, you could have a lake community and they build a golf course right next door to it. And of course, they're using fertilizer to keep the grass clean and stuff.
Yes.
And so that water, if it's in the watershed, or those nutrients do trickle in to the lake. And what happens, you'll see for some communities that we see, and we know one community that has had this problem, you're using these nutrients to keep your lawns nice, right? And so those nutrients go into the lake eventually. And then they cause algae blooms because there's all these nutrients to feed. And so what you see, the algae, the green stuff that's floating in the lake, and that's pretty dangerous for a lake because down the road, it keeps out the sunlight, which keeps out oxygen, and then it basically unbalances the healthiness of the lake, the fish population, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like recently, I saw some articles. Lake Erie had this big, massive algae bloom in Lake Erie, and you know Lake Erie is massive.
Oh, absolutely.
So there are some concerns, and that's kind of stuff that we work with. Is say, how can you prevent that? And people don't want to swim in that. You don't want to swim in this. It's like swimming in like freshwater seaweed in a sense, right? You know, so I think that's our work, is to kind of really advocate for that, because one of our K-12 programs is a watershed program, and basically the rule of thumb in the program is that there's no new water. You're never gonna come up with new water. It's just, we purify it. It goes back into the clouds. It rains. But once you destroy it or damage it or pollute it, it's
gone.
Unless we can find like new technology to kind of clean it up.
Right, and of course scientific testing may eventually lead to that type of thing too.
Exactly.
When you say K through, you're talking about kindergarten students.
Yes. Yeah.
And you get kindergarten students up there. Can they grasp some of this?
Well, all of our lessons based on the grade level are based on what they can grasp, you know. So as you go up, like for example, 4th grade is always watershed. So we're teaching them about how the watershed works, you know. K to 12 is more touchy-feely, you know, like pick up salamanders and show them the way the forest works, you know, based on their level. But then when we get up to 7th grade or even 9th and 12th grade, we're doing, in high school, we're doing like really collegiate work. We're taking water samples, going to our lab, looking under microscopes, and that kind of work.
Oh,
so,
yes.
So it's based on the continuum of how they learn. You know, we have a great core of educators. You know, a lot of them have their masters, have been in education for so many years, and so their job is to kind of make something that could be somewhat boring really fun, and by just going out and touching things and picking up rocks and you know, that kind of stuff. So
well, your environs are so natural there, and they are protected. So I would assume you would have deer in the property, and I don't know about bear, but
we do have bear too. People always ask us, are they going to encounter? What do I do if I encounter the bear? But they're more afraid of people than anything. So, but we do have that, and that's the natural environment. You're going to encounter wildlife. You know, you're going to encounter and see things. And the nice thing about going, we were just talking about this over the weekend with some guests that we had there. They call it, there's a new focus today called sunbathing or forest bathing, like kind of like sunbathing, but you go out into the forest. And it's really enjoying that whole peace and quiet of where you are and listening to things. You know, if you're quiet, you might hear a tree fall in the forest, you know, and it's that whole concept of, you know, you don't get to hear these sounds, especially if you have your window down.
So it then answers that age-old question: if a tree falls in the forest, does someone hear it? Right?
Yeah, exactly. You have to be in the forest to hear it. Yeah.
If someone were to just want to come up and have a look at this facility and take a hike there or something, they have to. Is there a charge for that? How do they check in?
No, there's no charge. I mean, so we're a nonprofit, so we accept donations, obviously, to support our work. We recommend a donation if people are so inclined to donate in our donation boxes when they arrive on property. You know, smart technology, they can swipe their credit card these days, do it on their phone if they really want to as well. But it's open to the public, sunrise to sunset, every day of the year.
You're open all year long.
We are. Well, I kind of like fibbed on that one. There's that 2-week period when it's rifle season. Because of all the hunting goes in the area, we shut down for rifle season just because
for safety's sake.
There's a lot of hunting around our property, and in communities around us, and we would rather just have no one out there when there's guns being fired.
Sure.
I'm sometimes uneasy to be sitting in my office during rifle season, but so those are the only 2 weeks of the year that we really shut down everything. Everything else is open, sunrise to sunset. Most of our visitors come on the weekends when they're looking for something to do. But like I said, we accept those donations. People can find about us on our website, which is really easy. It's lackawanna.org. That's no K for people in Lackawanna County. It's like people always put the K in it, but it's LACAWAC.
Okay.
That gives you directions, how to get there, the upcoming programs, the upcoming special events we're running. It gives you all the information you basically need. So you have
special events beyond the trail run and walk.
Right, yeah. We have several major events throughout the year. This is the upcoming one, the run walk. We do some historic teas in our lodge, not to add another component to our property because we're so multifaceted. We have a 1903 historic complex.
1903,
yeah,
wow.
So the Connell family from Scranton years ago, which everyone knows the Connell building, same family, bought it, built this hunting cabin. And here we are, we have this historic building. We use it as a wedding venue. We do retreats there. We do business meetings there. People just come to stay there for the weekend.
Yeah, hunting cabins and summer cottages to those folks coming out of the Gilded Age were not one-room shacks and cottages or...
No. This house is a 9-bedroom home with 3 bedrooms for the staff that managed the house, and I mean we always say it was a hunting cabin, and that's what they referred to it as. But it's a large home.
I've just come from New England and seen the Breakers, which was a summer cottage for the Vanderbilts with massive rooms and such.
This is a very modest home compared to those homes. Yeah.
Well, yeah, but still, it was again. People think of a cabin; they think of a little one-room cabin.
Right. Yeah, it was special at the time because it was this home that was state of the art for the time. Had its own carriage house and barn. Had its own ice house, so they had their own refrigeration, plus their own lake. The inconvenience for the family at the time, why they got rid of the property, is none of the Connell family, the children, wanted, because it was this inconvenience of taking the train from Scranton to Lake Ariel, and then taking the 7-8 mile, more like 11-mile carriage ride to the property. So it was kind of a inconvenience at the time, So, but here we are. Now we have that historic piece too, and people that hike here can see those buildings. People who come to the run will definitely run past those buildings. So that's right by our lake, so they'll see that too.
Right. Now the run, this is what, your 4th year?
4th year.
How has this been working out in terms of response?
It's good, always just get a race started. There's so many races out there, and we figured we kind of maybe have a little bit of a niche in the sense that not a lot of runs are actually in the middle of the forest.
No, very, very, very few.
So that can hurt us sometimes because people are like, oh, I don't know about a trail run. But basically, it's not like you're, jumping up onto rocks and stuff like that. There are trails. They're up and down a little bit, but it's been a great response. I think the challenge for us is sometimes people wonder about the distance. There's this kind of thing that we're up in Wayne County. I'll have to drive. I live by Montage, so for me, every day it's a 30-minute drive.
Right.
I don't mind it. So if people are leery, it's not bad.
And you've got interstate almost all the way.
It's basically interstate until they exit, yeah.
Exit 20.
And then it's about 3 miles from there. And we have signs marking it. There's big marker signs that point you to Lackawanna. You can't miss the signs that make your turn. So there should be no excuse not to get to the property. Yeah.
Well, this is, I want to repeat the date, and I keep forgetting, the 15th.
15th of October.
It's a Sunday, and it starts at 11. That's the actual start time of the run, the 11 a.m.?
Yeah, so people can arrive at 9 o'clock and just kind of come up and just kind of, get themselves ready for the run. If they're runners, or just kind of enjoy nature that morning, and so 9 o'clock's registration, onward till 11 o'clock start time.
Right, right. How is the future looking for your sanctuary? Obviously, it is nonprofit, so you're always biting the bullet on paying for things, I suppose. But
we've gotten so much more feedback of what we're doing over the last couple of years. A lot more people have been discovering us, have been coming out. Years ago, there was this sense that no one should come to visit us because we were a sanctuary, and that, in a sense, meant that no one can come visit.
Oh, yes.
And so we've been doing a lot of marketing, a lot of PR, mostly social media, word of mouth. Come visit. You're welcome.
You want people there.
Yeah,
sure.
We still get a lot of calls. That's why we added a dog walk, because people call us and say, "Can I bring my dog with me?" I'm like, "Of course they're welcome." Or can you come with your dog? It's more of the question. So yeah, we've been really trying to promote that and really get busy. This year has been really great in terms of the number of guests that have visited us. We keep logging where people come from, and it's great to see people.
Yeah, what kind of? Is it strictly local?
No. It's hard for some local people. A lot of local people still keep hearing about us, but don't make that trek up.
The old New York Empire State Building syndrome.
Yeah, I did the same thing too. I'm like, we have so many beautiful resources around here, and you forget to use them, right?
Yes, yes.
We get a lot of out-of-town visitors. It is a tourist area because it's Lake Wallenpaupack. So we get people from not only New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, but other states, other countries. But we also want to encourage the local people to come out as well too. It's here 365 days a year, well, almost 365 days a year, right? Come up and visit. You know?
Well, I think just to see something like a lake that was literally formed by glacier and has basically been not affected by development. I mean, very, very limited. You have the what you call the hunting cottage there and such, but basically not negatively impacted by people in the area.
Yeah.
So you can really see something, and it's talk about a natural setting.
It's great for people who are photographers and like to do some of that work on their spare time. If you're an artist and love to draw and paint, you know, we run artist programs all the time, a residency program for artists all different times of the year. People just can come up, bring your easel, paint, you know, draw, take photos, walk around. We have a lot of picnic tables at the visitor center down by the lake. Bring a picnic lunch and just spend the day there.
Yeah, that sounds great. I may give that a try myself, and just bring the picnic. I don't know how far I want to walk, but
and we do allow people, so people always ask us, what about getting down to the lake and want to see the historic buildings? We do have a road that goes down. It's a trail/road, and we do allow people who have some mobility issues who can't walk those full length of the trails. Even though it's a half-mile down, we do allow cars to go down so people can still see the lake, only have a short, really, distance to the lake from that point.
I see.
So we're open to people experiencing that. We want people to visit.
Sure. Well, by gosh, you take advantage of it. Go take a look and enjoy it. But if you can, participate in the trail, run, and walk, and the dog walk as well. And once again, for registration for that, if they're not coming to do it right on the site, how do they do it in advance?
LACWAC.org, the main page has a link right to all the information that people need to know about the race or the runs and the walk. They can call us. It's 689-9494 if they remember that, but...
Try that one more time.
689-9494.
Okay.
It's pretty easy to remember sometimes.
Okay, good catch. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll look forward to keeping a touch with you and various events that are happening up there. It sounds like a wonderful place to visit and certainly an exciting place if you're going to be involved in the run of the walk. I'm David DeCosmo for ECTV Live. Until we see you again, hope all your news is good.